Fourth time's the charm. Are pensioners really living better than most workers? Are they the ones taking all the taxpayers' money? Pensioners in the UK receive a combination of state support that can make their standard of living much better than many working class adults. As of 2025, the average state pension is around £200 a week, roughly £10,000 a year. And addition support, such as pension credit, winter fuel allowance, free or discounted public transport, which is more than most university students get, and even some disabled people get. Council tax reductions, so in villages, like the two people that live there who work have to pay for the entire village, and healthcare subsidies further reduce costs for eligible pensioners. In total, the government spends £166 billion a year on pensioner benefits, over half of all benefit spending in Great Britain. Over the majority of this is just the state pension itself, while a small minority may receive more than this, many of which who work may earn less than working a low-wage job. The problem with this is obviously a lot of them have pensions which they've saved for in their lifetime, which they can live on, so they don't really need a lot of this extra money, which makes a lot of people seem quite jealous and quite angry that they're actually having to pay for this, even though to a lot of people it's actually extremely reasonable, like a lot of farmers and teachers who actually rely on these pensions and people are happy to pay for them, but they aren't happy to pay for people who can completely sustain themselves and do not need this extra money, and they don't need these additional programs. When did all this happen though? When did we start all this? Because I thought veterans should be getting all the benefits. Well, it all starts with the Notorious Beveridge Report in 1942, which I seem to mention in every video. Starting with the 1948 introduction of state pension as part of a post-war welfare state, which is very reasonable. Over the following decades, pensions were gradually expanded and upgraded, particularly in the 1970s, to keep pace with inflation and rising costs. In 2003, Tony Blair's new government introduced pension credit, a means-tested benefit to support lower-income retirees. Today, the state pension, combined with pension credit and other allowances, form most of the financial support for pensioners across the UK. Of course, we also give triple lock pensions and winter fuel allowances, which lots of people see as unnecessary extra benefits, but then also there are lots of people that need them. But obviously, what's the problem with this? We don't want our pensioners to go cold this winter, but a lot of people just see this as a blatant problem because so many young workers in their 20s and 30s who are working hard and paying taxes are earning less money and getting less benefits than a lot of people who don't work. Another example of why this gets people angry is simply jealousy. A lot of young people nowadays, especially in their 20s and 30s, are just jealous of the older generations in lots of very reasonable ways. For example, everyone owns a house, or almost everyone seems to own a house, and a lot of young people are just angry that, well, justifiably of course, they can't afford to buy a house on the teacher's salary. They need both them and their partner to work, so why should they pay for these people who had things much better than they did when they were younger? And this kind of creates a bit of a divide, and as a lot of people say, nowadays we're starting to build kind of towns. For example, off the top of my head I'm thinking Eastbourne, Bexhill, a lot of towns in Sussex and Devon, Torquay, of places which are just full of pensioners and older people because they haven't really assimilated in the same way, because they haven't really adapted to modern living. So for example, it's full of cafes which, you know, all close at 3 PM, full of, you know, charity shops, and obviously things which aren't bad, but kind of provide a divide between the older and the young people, which is slowly expanding, and obviously with an aging population, this is just going to get worse and worse. Overall, as long as there is a large number of older people in the country, the younger population is going to be repeatedly turned away by the welfare state. Supporting both older pensioners and migrants is seemingly unjustified ways of creating a large division which I can see coming over the horizon.